So, fellas, we're gonna cover some ground today. Tim Pool had on Joel Webbon, Connor Tomlinson, and Predator Pisco. Why does everyone in the world call him Predator Pisco? Because I refuse to believe he reserves his constant gaslighting and antagonization for outside of the bedroom. He's an absolute whore. But he is legally my countryman, and therefore, in the interest of the community, I must highlight and heavily criticize his petulant, estrogenic debate style. And I also want to show Joel's case for Christian nationalism, and Connor's grace and pragmatism in the face of a literal demon. But first, here's Pisco psychotically asking meaningless questions, just to obfuscate any and all productive conversation.
In Chicago, we're talking about an emergency scenario that Trump could declare an emergency.
Well, then you can just answer the question. You can, like, if someone says, for example, in every circumstance, can he deploy the National Guard? You can just say no, in some circumstances, right?
Now let's talk about the real world.
Well, you didn't answer that, right? Not in every circumstance.
There's no absolutes.
Dude, why don't you just answer the question first?
I'm trying to, but you know why the murder rate went down?
Can you answer my question?
I am answering your question, but you're not smart enough to understand complex situations.
Listen, you can answer. A question is not an answer, so I'm not sure. You're asking, do you understand murder rates? I don't know.
I'm going to pause real quick and just go to comprehensive skill.
Yeah. No, you never answered my question.
The answer is
yes.
When
military.
applicable.
I ask a conditional.
Can you answer that first? Wait, can you answer that first? Is crime less of a problem now than it was?
I answered it like 5 times
you haven't
already.
Yes, no, answer this question. Here, why don't you answer the question?
It's like your brain is what were those Duplos?
I don't know what a Duplo is.
Exactly.
What's a Duplo?
Duplo were the really big Legos because little kids didn't have the ability to comprehend small shapes.
Wait, no, but hang on.
You keep doing the same thing where you say, what about this problem? Do you agree with an absolute? I don't. What about this absolute?
Is
I don't
more
agree.
crime worse?
More crime is worse.
Okay, but so now that we have less crime, fucking hypothetical.
Why? Why would crime go up? Why would crime go up? Why?
Don't swear at me. Hang on, I've been hostile to you the entire show. There's no need to be passive aggressive.
Just
no need
answer
to be rude.
the question, bro. You guys are fucking.
I can.
Military deployments all over the country.
What is anarchy?
And you call yourself an anarchist.
What is anarchy?
You're supporting Trump, deporting people because they're critical of Israel.
What is anarchy?
What do you mean?
He's insufferable. Pisco dodges a question when it's asked to him directly multiple times in a row while asking all of these rapid-fire questions that lead nowhere and just are used to interrupt the person that's talking. Oh yeah, he only uses this for debates, by the way. He never uses this in interpersonal relationships with girlfriends to manipulate them and coerce them. No. This is only used in this arena. Totally. Can't tell anything about his character. All right. Here we go. Let's hear this debate about Trump using the National Guard in Chicago.
I believe it is preferable to take the Donald Trump conservative approach of deploy National Guard, but not to enforce laws, but as a presence, as opposed to the Democrat strategy of tear down the homes of black people and kick them out and make them homeless. What do you think?
Even if it's illegal?
Deploying the National Guard?
Would you support the deployment of the National Guard in a city if it was illegal?
So we're talking about a specific incident in Chicago right now, the real world, not a hypothetical, is it on paper or not? We're dealing with 2 scenarios.
Okay, so Pisco is acting like he cares about the Constitution, people's rights, and whatnot. He just wants to make Trump seem like an authoritarian. And so Tim Pool bats all that away, and he's like, well, here's what the Democrats have done in Chicago. I am from Chicago, so I know about this personally. And that's how they've dealt with the crime. Now, what Trump is doing is having, 84 National Guard show up, and now we're going to hear 2 things. Tim Pool is just going to explain 2 things to add clarity, so Pisco can engage in good faith.
We're dealing with 2 scenarios. First, I will stress, Trump can legally deploy the National Guard. They just can't enforce the law.
In every circumstance, you think he has unbridled authority to deploy the National Guard whenever he wants? Any National Guard?
So in Chicago, we're talking about an emergency scenario that Trump could declare an emergency.
Well, then you can just answer the question. If someone says, for example, in every circumstance, can he deploy the National Guard? You can just say no, in some circumstances, right?
Now let's talk about the real world.
Well, you didn't answer that, right? Not in every circumstance.
There's no absolutes.
Right. So you agree with me, don't you, that there are congressionally imposed limits?
So I want to call this yes begging, a classic leftist rhetorical strategy. They want to groom you into the habit of just agreeing with them and saying yes. So they'll start asking you super reductive questions and begging for a yes or a no. When the question is so nebulous and simplistic, obviously the answer would be yes, which then leads them to another series of questions. Tim identifies this and pushes back, which makes old Predator Pisco encroach and obfuscate even further. By the way, he obfuscated so hard, Tim never got to say his second thing. Always interrupts, always redirecting the conversation into the weeds.
This is 48th West 44th Street. This is a couple blocks from where I grew up. And it's all just beautiful, lush fields surrounded by fences. That's what it is. I wonder if I can go back in time. Oh, yeah, look at this. That's where black people used to live. Look at all these houses. They fucking destroyed because instead of saying we want to deal with the crime, they went in, evicted all of the black people and ripped their homes down.
I'm not sure about the particulars of this, Tim, but like we're not here to discuss.
Sure.
Was this
It's my neighborhood.
smart or not? I mean, it's if this happened in your neighborhood, I'm really sorry about that. But we're not here to discuss this, right? Are we here to discuss the bulldozing of homes? Or are we here to discuss
2011,
the National Guard?
We're here to discuss what is the solution to the problem of crime.
So Tim wants to specifically focus on Chicago because it gives us a grounding in reality, huge history of crime, his personal experience with the history of crime, and of course Pisco is going to want to take so many steps back and talk about it in general and go, no, I'm talking about the National Guard, not the crime. It's like, well, the crime is the justification for the National Guard. Oh, so what do you think the National Guard's going to do? Do you think they might do something authoritarian and crazy? It's so funny how, with black people, the left loves to look for a root cause, but then when it comes to Trump calling in the National Guard to Chicago, all of a sudden the root cause doesn't matter at all.
What's your solution to this? What's your solution?
I don't know. We're not here to discuss my broader solution to crime.
You don't have one.
Wait, we're not here to discuss my broader solution to crime, are we? Are we here to discuss crime generally or the deployment of the National Guard and the military? Whether that's something we support.
The underlying issue of the deployment of the National Guard is the crime.
It's because of murder. It's because of the crime.
Okay, because of murder, we think that we should deploy the military. So would you be in favor?
Well, it's the level of murder and how long it's been going on for, and how district attorneys are not prosecuting these crimes, so they're not doing their jobs to reduce the crime. In fact, they're letting criminals go, and they go back on the street to reoffend, and so that's why the National Guard is being called in. Now, if you don't want that to happen, you should really pressure Chicago into prosecuting these people, incapacitating them by taking them off the streets and putting them in prison. Sounds pretty simple and easy when you're on the right.
So this is what you have not done thus far in this discussion, and I'm just honestly curious. What's your solution?
For what?
A bunch of murder in Chicago.
Yeah, I don't take that to be the proposition of what we're here to talk about. But
I'll answer for him.
I'll answer for him. I think we should. I think we should fund our law enforcement. I think that we should have, when appropriate, use the FBI and other federal resources. I mean, to help the city of Chicago.
Didn't work.
Hang on a second. So, just be clear. Just because something doesn't work doesn't mean that we should apply the military solution. That doesn't follow, right? Just because
you just keep doing the same thing over and over again, despite
if it doesn't work,
and
you
also
have to
crime
do
is
something that works.
Crime is down.
Find a solution.
You said yourself, crime is down overall in the country. I mean, Trump took credit in DC.
So let's do two things.
In DC, Trump was taking credit for massive crime coming down in May of this year.
You know what I'm going to do?
That's great.
You know what I'm going to do?
Chicago is still a hellhole.
And here we have the evolution of the mostly peaceful argument. Remember during quarantine race war of 2020? 93% of the protests were peaceful. And so even right now, with Chicago, yeah, it's violent there, but it's not violent in other places. Does this work when it comes to black people being shot by the police? How most of the time that doesn't happen? So when they say Breonna Taylor's name, we go, yeah, but that mostly doesn't happen. Oh, it only works one way? Let's just jump into these numbers for a moment so I can explain how they do this. You see how in Oregon, 40% of the protests were riots? That's in Oregon State. You want to see what Portland looks like on their map? Political violence demonstrations and strategic developments in the United States, May 24th to August 22nd, 2020. The orange are the riots. We can agree if all of Oregon was 40% riots, Portland must have been over 50% riots, judging by that fat orange circle right there. But you see, using this logic, we get to ignore the fact that most of the protests in Portland were riots. Because look at Montana and Idaho. Most of those protests weren't riots. Checkmate, right-wingers. That's the level of evil we're dealing with here. But let's get back on topic. Let's kick it over to Chicago. Look at all the laugh riots that happened there. Now I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of riots to happen in the Chicago area. I mean, in 2 months, 1 week, and 6 days, sure, there was over 1,000 arrests, over $66 million in damage, 2,100 buildings damaged and looted, 71 buildings set on fire, 157 people charged, over 280 police officers injured, and 15 deaths. But here's something you're not thinking of. Here's why you're an idiot. Have you considered Alaska? Look at how peaceful it was in Alaska. Let's combine that with the overall stats to bring it up to 93% peaceful. It's demons. It's the work of Satan. So let's take a moment to wash away the demon and hear the case for a pan-Christian theocracy integrated into the American legal system. This will be from the Protestant perspective. I'm showing you this so if you disagree, you can at least steelman the argument in good faith and know exactly what you disagree with. Also, if I keep listening to Piss Bro, I'm gonna turn my face into shrapnel off my keyboard.
I want to use laws to promote
criminalize blasphemy.
Yeah, what?
To criminalize blasphemy.
Oh, absolutely, of course. Yes, I want to use
Who
laws
decides? Who
to
decides?
stop wickedness.
Who decides what's
and
blasphemous?
Promote good. What?
Who decides what's blasphemous?
The guy with the gun.
One, the Lord Jesus Christ, the Triune
He's not
God.
around to tell us.
Secondly, you can look to our heritage. You can look to our history. You can look to what the nation.
Well, our
was in
heritage
its
says
founding.
First Amendment, the very first line: Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment.
Correct.
Of religion.
Congress. Let's get there. So First Amendment. Let's make it even simpler. First word of the First Amendment. You're right. Congress cannot make a national church. So you cannot have a federal church over the whole country that is Episcopalian or Catholic or Baptist or whatever. But at the time that happened, you still had within the original colonies, 10 or 11 out of the 13 colonies had sanctioned churches. So technically, even with the First Amendment as it is on the books today, you could have state churches. Texas could be, Baptist, and Mississippi could be Presbyterian. You could have state churches. I'm not even saying that you should, but you could have state churches. What I would argue for at the national level is a pan-Protestant Christian nationalism. I think we should adopt a preamble.
That's a religion, isn't it?
What?
Isn't that a religion?
That's religion. Congress can't determine a religion. Congress cannot say at the national level,
the 14th Amendment incorporates the First Amendment to apply to the states, I'll say, and the Second Amendment also didn't used to apply to the state governments. Are you suggesting under your framework you would not want the Second Amendment?
My theocratic framework.
So under your theocratic, you called it a theocracy.
Yes,
under your theocracy,
of course. Theocracy is wonderful.
Okay, got it. So this is what I mean.
God above the state. So separation of church and state is not the same as separation of Christ and state. There will be a God above the state. If there's no God above the state, then the state becomes God.
So these ideas aren't even close to happening, and I'm an atheist, but I think it's a good rationalization of how he's interpreting theocracy, because I love how the left gets to play with language, but the right never gets to play with language at all whatsoever. So when you think of theocracy, you think of a dictatorship, but he's integrating it into the American value system, and a lot of what he's saying is what the country was built upon in various different ways. So, okay, I'm listening.
So yes, I want Christ and state not severed. Church and state, that's different.
So we can have some corrupt priests telling us what we're allowed to say and not?
Nope, that's an ecclesiocracy. That's a church-run state.
Corrupt,
I'm saying
whatever you want to call
theocracy.
it. Whatever, your corrupt ministers, your corrupt people.
No, but what you're saying is not what I'm saying.
Okay, that's what's going to happen, though. That's what's going to happen.
No, you're talking about priest running the state.
That's
a church-run state.
Hold on.
I'm saying a theocracy, not ecclesiocracy.
So this is, it will happen. I agree with Pisco, but it'll happen in any system among any group of people for any reason.
Correct. So we have priests who are running things right now. And the high priestesses have blue hair. They're transgender. They're lesbian. They abort 1 million babies every single year. We have sacraments. It's not whether but which.
Tim comes in with a good point of let's say corruption will happen. Corruption happens in any system. And I feel like this is what a capitalist develops when arguing communism versus capitalism, where since capitalism actually exists, they act like these issues would go away with communism, which just will never exist. So rhetorically, I really enjoy this approach of, corruption can happen no matter what. It's a universal criticism that can happen in any system. And just because something may become corrupt, we already have a corrupt system. So it's good to keep that in mind, where you need a stronger rebuttal for it to be more compelling, in my view.
Every society has a God. Every society has an orthodoxy, and we have blasphemy laws, not necessarily on the books, but in terms of cultural power, every society of people has an orthodoxy. Anything that's deemed outside of that is going to be considered blasphemy. There are things that I could say right now, which I won't, but things that I could say right now that would be treated as blasphemy. I would ruin my life. I wouldn't be able to feed my kids.
I mean, absolutely incredible use of the word blasphemy. It is blasphemous if you use the N-word. It is blasphemous if you criticize trans people. There's certain things that are already blasphemous. And I agree with this point. If we're gonna make something blasphemous, let's make it Jesus Christ and the subset of Christian religions that developed the country and the West into what it is morally, to the point where it's instilled in our laws.
Last commandment is do not covet. 10 commandments, but think of it as 2 headlines, 2 subcategories, tables of the law. Our duty toward God, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. And then the second is love your neighbor as yourself. Coveting was a sin, but it was never viewed as a crime, right? You don't want like a Tom Cruise Minority Report where they're trying to predict crimes and sins of the heart.
Well, I don't.
Yeah, and neither do I.
So I don't know. You support this deployment?
No, I don't. Let me finish. So coveting is a sin, it's not a crime. So it's like, so then when is this 10th commandment, it's one of the 10 commandments, when is it punished? It's punished when an individual doesn't check coveting at the level of the heart and it spills over into theft or to murder it's when it breaches, now it's a crime. It's an outward action that is against the people and against the Lord.
And so now you have a taste of a brand of Christian nationalism. He explains sins of the heart are not illegal, and it's only when they manifest into reality into law-breaking behavior. To be charitable, it seems like he wants more Christianity throughout society to bring back the morality and sense of duty that made us a great nation. Doesn't seem too scary to me at all. Okay, back to Pissy C minimizing crime in Chicago by pivoting to crime going down in the aggregate.
And you can tell me if you disagree with this. Maybe you think I brought it up for some other reason. That crime is going down to suggest to you that it's less of a problem than it was before.
You were suggesting we don't need intervention because crime is going down.
No, I'm saying, do you agree it's less of a problem than it was 30 years ago? Of course it is, right?
Wait, what?
Is crime less of a problem now than it was 30 years ago?
It depends where.
No. Wait, what? Crime is a problem always, and it's of same value.
I love
the value or urgency of crime hasn't changed at all.
So the urgency of crime isn't affected by how much crime there is?
Let me ask you.
Wait, I want to hear you say that, Tim. Is the urgency of crime is problem affected by how much crime there is? Is it?
The urgency.
Look at the HP hit poor Connor Tomlinson takes. Yeah, buddy, you're dealing with a demon. It's the classic leftist trap of we need crime to perpetuate to justify government intervention. So we ignore crime happening in a small area because crime is going down across the country. Then they try to act like you're bad faith for saying the truth, where we need to focus on crime in specific areas, which is why we can't have a federal nationalized police force. It has to be hyper-specific to the areas it's happening in, especially in a multicultural society.
You said yourself, it's not like we can't live. You said it yourself at the start of the conversation. We've had worse times. And so it sounds to me like we haven't met that threshold, at least in your mind, that we're going to throw away our constitutional scheme of government. That's ridiculous.
So get a load of how bitchy and passive-aggressive this is. He's going to accuse Tim Pool of wanting to throw away our constitutional scheme of government. And Tim's going to try and defend himself, but he's going to keep trying to just move on after he says that. He's a species of devil.
We're going to throw away our constitutional scheme of government? That's ridiculous.
Who said that?
Okay, and I want to address your context.
That's a ridiculous straw man that no one argued.
So all I'm saying is the good here is to protect our history, our Constitution.
What is the circumstance by which Trump can legally deploy the National Guard?
It depends. He has different authorities to legally deploy the National Guard.
Emergency.
Can I address his context?
Emergency is one of them.
It depends which kind of emergency. So
like which one?
So for example, the title he invoked in California, it's rebellion. Mm-hmm. It's invasion, none of which are present, and an inability to enforce law.
How to define invasion?
Well, okay. Why should I have to define invasion right now as we speak?
Just like a little weaselly little pussy, he wants to throw in a little passive-aggressive jab and then not explain himself, not go into any detail. But let's see how he contends with Connor Tomlinson, who, no matter what, is just incredibly reasonable, yet very direct and honest, and what he's saying seems to just be observably true.
This is where this kind of thinking gets. So when you ask, like, is this fascism? This is the kind of fascistic thinking.
Hang on. Sorry, Tim. I have to. It's not fascism. Inequality is not fascism. Fascism is the sublimation of everybody to the state. It is a coherent philosophy. It's a stupid philosophy, but it's a coherent philosophy. Saying fascism is just saying, oh, you're noticing differences, therefore you're evil. Okay?
No, you're not just noticing differences. Yes. I was happy to say that, the stats show that disproportionately black people, Hispanic people commit more crime than white people. I'm happy to notice things. What you said is not just notice it, but you want to apply a different constitutional standard. That
I
is to
didn't
say,
say constitutional standard.
A different search and seizure. Well, search and seizure is adjudged under a constitutional standard, the Fourth Amendment. So under that amendment, there's no like black people get less search and seizure protections than white people. And you said, I just want to be clear. I'll give you an opportunity to retract it. Black people should have lower rights under that search and seizure
lower
standard.
rights. You're being very disingenuous.
Go for it. Yeah.
I'm saying there should be
lower for everybody, because right now we've got a ton of murder, and those who are innocent will be protected. You have
so
those
white
who are
people should be
innocent
treated the same as black people. Is that right?
Hang on. Legally speaking, that's fine, but you would be justified in certain neighborhoods which are disproportionately black to have a harsher search and seizure policy, like as in more police presence, more stop and search, because it would save lives.
But hang on, a presence.
And you can do it based off of region.
If you're
then the region, like it or not, overlaps with ethnicity.
Okay, but
what's the
melanin
do a
deployment?
You can say no, this area.
You don't need to get a color swatch out.
You could do a deployment based on crime, and it happens to coincide.
But it's not going to happen to coincide.
But that's not what you said.
No. It's not going to happen to coincide. That's just the honesty about it. You're going to deploy it to black neighborhoods to save the lives of black people and other people that stumble.
Let me ask this.
Connor strikes me as the type of chap that always asks a lady before he can kiss her. And unfortunately, he's bringing manners to a feral cat fight with Pisco. P. Baby Piss Breath is trying to be as antagonistic and as bad faith as humanly possible. How bad faith is Pisco? Here's what the interaction with his incredibly polite and graceful interlocutor looks like on his channel.
Mexicans were waving their own flags inside your country and declaring that they were going to take over a state for the race. I think that probably qualifies.
Yeah, it's funny that we have a UK person coming here to talk to me about the First Amendment, not my country.
Hold on.
That's why
we don't need your lessons on military deployments or the First Amendment.
Okay, there's no need to be petty.
Pisco is only there to get clips and be a pizza shit. That's why he's constantly interrupting. That's why he's constantly talking. He's just looking for his clip. No matter how wrong he is consecutively, no matter how he looks to you, this isn't for you. This is for his own propaganda. And let's take our hats off, put our hands over our hearts, and watch how Connor interacts with Pisco. I don't know how he does it. Here's the part Pissy Elliott didn't show you.
Need your lessons on military deployments or the First Amendment.
Okay, there's no need to be petty. I was actually going to ask you a question in very good faith, so I would rein that in, please.
Holy shit, dude! It's called a fucking hypothetical.
Why? Why would crime go up? Why would crime go up? Why?
Don't swear at me. Hang on. I've been hostile to you the entire show. There's no need to be passive aggressive.
Just
no need
answer
to be rude.
the question, bro. You guys are fucking.
I can. Okay, I can. In what sense? As in, why? Why would it? No. Why would it?
So let me just give me a second. What he's going to do is he's going to say, would you vote for Trump if it would increase the crime?
Yes.
In certain circumstances where Trump would do one thing that would be a net positive with a net negative, he will then turn it around and present with an absolute saying, aha, you support crime.
This is exactly why I'm asking you a follow-up.
This is what I'm saying. Just because even if I bought onto your assumption that Kamala Harris would increase crime in this country, I don't buy that assumption. I don't think that's borne out. I don't know. You're distinguishing also. You're distinguishing also between like immigrant crime and non-immigrant crime. Basically, what I'm saying,
because all immigrant crime is an option. If they weren't here, they wouldn't commit the crime.
All I'm trying to say is that there are a lot of different reasons that go into why you would vote for someone. What I'm trying to isolate Tim on is crime less of an issue today than it was 30 years ago.
Wow. So let's end it here. The left is beyond discussion, beyond candor, beyond manners. Charlie Kirk was just assassinated in broad daylight, and we have Destiny mocking him with leftists laughing and calling him a fascist and saying he deserved it. I'm not exactly in the mood to be funny right now. What I saw is what you used to have to go to gore sites to see. This is why you have to be right-wing. This is what they did to a moderate person on the right in front of a massive crowd of people. Things feel different right now. A line has been crossed, and it feels as though there is no going back. All I had to do for this video was make an outro, and then I just saw something that I have to process. My function in this space is to give you a pressure release valve for all the antagonization put upon you. I had to go through it completely alone for over a decade. I know how confusing it can be to go through a mass-formed psychosis and so many psyops one after another, just for you to try to understand what's happening and the strategies used to do these things to your well-natured brain. Since I've made a push to the right wing, I felt at home. My audience seems to understand when I'm joking, I don't have to preface everything, and they're so sincere and come from all walks of life. Truly a diverse community. I'm an atheist that has somehow drawn in religious people that, on occasion, tell me that they're praying for me. But it was the first time in my life where it wasn't condescending, and it was kind of profound that a person would sincerely hope for the best things to happen to me. To me, gratitude is not said, it's expressed. Lately, it's felt like everything I've gone through in my life has led up to what I'm doing now. Even though I'm being funny, you guys make it feel important. I just watched the life leave a great man's eyes with his political opposition mocking him. He was called all the same names we've all been called. An unbelievably important and influential man. He massively pushed the culture forward in terms of debate, understanding your opponent's argument so well that you understand it better than they do. But most importantly, he was a father. There's footage out there for the world to see. His kids might see it one day. God knows what the left will say to his kids and to his wife to antagonize them. I'm playing it over and over again in my head as I'm reading this. Well, I'm gonna go process what I'm feeling. I deeply appreciate the fellas, so I'm gonna go back to trying to make you laugh and think. Have a good one.